Mike, okay? How about that? You got it? That's as high as I can go, so I hope everybody can hear me. Good morning. My name is Dr. Alan Smith. I'm the Director of Performance Improvement for Scheduled Care and Special Delivery Unit. My job this morning is really just to set the scene, kick off the morning, and introduce you to a couple of my colleagues who undertook a series of visits alongside the FDU and the NTPF during the summer. Some of the hospitals that we visited during the summer are here today. The equally hospitals that we didn't get around to visit. But one of the reasons that we're running these series of workshops is to share this learning, share some of the common themes that came out of those visits, which were remarkably consistent across all the hospital visits. My colleague Ivan will introduce the rationale for selecting the initial group of hospitals, but they're a mix of big, small, urban, rural. So it was a nice mix of hospitals to visit and see what was happening in the world of scheduled care, particularly in the world of waiting list management. And even though we talk primarily about waiting list management, this is bigger than that. This is about bed capacity, this is about bed utilisation, this is about theatre capacity and theatre utilisation. So all these themes are going to come up during the rest of today. And we have a number of objectives that we want to achieve today. This is workshop number 3 of 4. And we're constantly changing it a little bit, just to tweak it, change it, and deliver the learning a little bit better as we go along. And it's going to constantly evolve as well, because this is not going to become a one-off item. We're going to be talking about waiting list management predominantly today, but eventually we're going to get into bed capacity modelling next year. We're going to get into outpatients next year. So this is what I refer to up there as normal business. This isn't an initiative. I said this is permanent. This is going to be normal work that we're all going to be undertaking together. And really the emphasis of today is really going to be practically based, focused on data analytical skills. And just focusing the skill sets that's required really to do well in scheduled care management. Some of this will be very easy to some of you, some of it will be very difficult to others, but that's not a problem, it's not an issue. It's a lot of these are new concepts to our Irish Health Service, which has been struggling over the last 30, 40 years of doing one thing in one particular way. So we're trying to change all of that. There are 2 documents today that will be launched. One is the waiting list management policy. This is draft 2 of a version that was originally drafted by the NTPF. We're going to be launching it as a working document, and we'll be getting feedback from you all in the next 2 weeks or so, making comments. Some of the terminology will be very familiar to you. My colleague Liz Lothering is here from the NTPF, and she'll be taking you through that a little later this morning. And the second document that we'll be launching today is a toolkit, which will become, I hope, a Bible for scheduled care management over the next 2 to 3 years. It will be focused today, as I said, on waiting list management and the issues around that, but it's going to be broader than that. It's going to become an online tool. We're going to expand it and use it as a really practical tool for all hospitals. So the team for these workshops, as with the visits, consists of the SBU, the NTPF, PA Consulting Group, and I've introduced Ivan. His colleague David Hamill is here as well today, and they'll introduce themselves during each of the sessions. And last but by no means least, the hospitals, because we can't do this on our own, either ourselves or yourselves. We all have to do this as a team. There's no doubt that our health service is in quite a bit of trouble at the moment. And the only solution to it is by combining our efforts, because we're all going to fail if we don't get on board with the team approach to this. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Just to step back a little bit, there's an awful lot of doom and gloom about, and I think it's important to share some good efforts that have been made over the last year. We don't talk enough about it. This is unspun. This is no media presentation. This is what the data is showing. This is what your data is showing. This is what your efforts over the last 9 months have delivered. At the start of the year and at the beginning of January, in the middle of January, we tipped over into over 60,000 people in total on the active waiting list. That's come down now to just under 50,000 at the end of September. That's a pretty good effort. At the start of the year, it was can't be done, won't be done, will never be done. It was done, and it was through the efforts of people in this room. Last year's target set by the government and the Minister for Health was that nobody should be waiting more than 12 months for an inpatient or day case surgical procedure. And by and large, all hospitals met that target at the end of December. over there, 2011. There were two hospitals that didn't make it, University College Hospital Galway and Merlin Park. I should give them credit, they did make that target in 2012. Not only that, but they cleared all their waiting lists at the end of September, so that they had no patient waiting over 9 months as well. So I just have to give them credit for that, because given the situation that they came from. But you will notice that at the start of last year, or this year, there was quite a significant bounce back, and that's something that we have to watch out for. It's not sustainable to keep doing that. And we still have this slight rump of over 12-month waiters that really is unacceptable for a health service in 2012. But let's look at the 9 months again. The target for this year, at the end of this year, is that nobody should be waiting more than 9 months for an inpatient or day case surgical procedure, and we're well on track to achieve that target. Well on track. Again, at the start of the year, it can't be done, it won't be done. I'm confident enough to say that it will be done. I said it still requires enormous effort on hospitals from here until the end of the year, but it can be done. And most importantly of all, we have to protect ourselves against that bounce back again in early 2013. The third access target for this year is the scopes. Nobody should be waiting more than 13 weeks for a routine scope, either upper or lower. And again, magnificent effort since the start of the summer. Middle of July, there were over 5,000 people waiting over 3 months for an upper or lower endoscopy. That's just around the 700 mark at the end of September, and still on target to achieve that and clear it by the end of the year. Is it sustainable? I would readily admit that it's not right now. We are buying time at the moment to allow the structures and the processes to be put in place to create a sustainable environment that will that sort of target into 2013 and beyond. There's a real problem with regard to endoscopy, I think, in this country, in the sense of demand management. There's no doubt that we're over-scoping, both upper and lower, and that's something that we as a health service have to get to grips with. There is a new support coming into the SDU in terms of a supporting resource for all your hospitals. Again, to act as a supportive tool, supportive network to enable you to put in place sustainable solutions to demand in relation to your endoscopy. This one is the children's target. More ambitious again. Nobody should be waiting more than 20 weeks if you're in a children's hospital for an inpatient day case procedure. And that's a significant drop from over 1,800 at the start of the year to just over 200 at the end of September. And again, it's going to be challenging to get that down to zero by the end of the year, but it is the target for this year. So I think what I want to say with all those graphs is that we don't celebrate enough of the achievements, and credit to everybody in this room, because as I said, we can't do this individually or alone. It's the collaborative efforts of everybody that has achieved this. Now, for those hospitals who've done the visits or participated in the visits, I put up a slide that talked about the rules or really the assumptions underpinning the couple of days that we do a visit. And it's non-judgmental, it's non-critical. We're not expecting perfection. But the one key rule is that data drives the discussion. They're not anecdotes, even though we might talk a little bit about anecdotes today because it's a different context. But really, when we're focused on a visit, it really has to be the data. And you'll understand why in the sessions that follow, the logic behind that. Because it's an immensely powerful tool, both for the clinicians, both for the nurses, both for the managers, to come together around the table and start talking data. It's the one thing that everyone trusts. And, I talk a lot about data because I can't come up with the solutions for you. It's your data. It's meant to stimulate questions for yourselves, and it's meant to stimulate the solutions that you're going to come up with. And so far, we've seen magnificent efforts by the 6 hospitals that we visited, and the workshops today have shown equally engaged teams. This is a rather busy looking slide, but it's a slide that I quite like. To get change, which is what we're all after, really requires those attributes on the screen. It requires vision and leadership. It requires competency and capacity. You need to know what you're doing. You need to be engaged. You need to have some level of resources behind it. And you need to have a change management program underpinning it all. If you get all of those components, you will get change. If you're missing vision and leadership, you're going to cause confusion. If you're missing the competency and the capacity, I think you've all been there. I know I have. You're going to be a bit anxious. Okay? If you're not quite sure what to do, We're going to be anxious. What about engagement? If we're not engaged, we're not talking to each other, resistance, normal human reaction. The resources, there has to be some level of resources. Granted, we're in a very difficult situation as a health service, but I suppose we are putting in as much resources as we can, be that myself, be that PA, be that through the NTPF. We're doing our level best to support you through this environment. And that by no means easy. There's no change management program. This isn't a continuous process. If you don't see this as a continuous supportive environment, we're going to be on a treadmill without a shadow of a doubt. So I like that slide. As I said, I've been, I think, on all of those paths. I'm seeing a few heads nod as well and smiling, so I think I'm not alone, having been finding myself on those. I mean, that's as much as I'm going to say for now. Unfortunately, I have to dip out for about an hour, but I will be back. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Ivan McConnell, and Ivan is going to take you through really the rationale and the beginning, rationale behind the visits originally, and also some data discussions as well. The focus, we're going to split up a bit more into more practical with the theory side of things today. We think that works better. So I'll hand over to Ivan.
Thank you. You guys at the back okay in terms of hearing everything? Everybody happy? Yeah? Well, good morning everybody. As Alan said, my name's Ivan McConnell from PA. Put in meaning context, just as a few headlines. My background is in ops management, and I've been an ops director in a large teaching hospital, which is over 800 beds, but I've also been a chief operating officer in a commissioner in the UK, sitting on the other side, so I actually push my colleagues to the other half, which is in place today. As Alan says, what we're going to do is run through 3 sessions, and then this afternoon we're going to get you to do a case study. Now the case study is actually probably the bit that pulls all of this together. So I would strongly urge everybody to listen this morning. You might have a little prize, Jenny says, by the end for the best group actually, but so far they've all been very good. The feedback's been great. So listen, engage as well. I don't want to stand here and talk out you all morning because that's going to be boring for me and boring for you. So the first section's a bit more chalk and talk, and then when we get into the data piece, I'd quite like you to engage. Conscious that's quite difficult in a lecture, Peter, but we'll give it a go. All right. The other bit that's probably scariest for me is this is the first time we've done this with 4 of the hospitals we visited in the room actually. But what I'm going to say is they all made a fantastic effort and they all delivered a fantastic achievement, as Alan said. But actually search them out and have a chat with them during the day, because actually part of this is about the cascade of awareness. So the first section is going to look at some lessons learned and give you some prompts. Yeah. The second piece is going to be Liz is going to launch the waiting list policy. And David's going to talk about the toolkit you've got in front of you. 2 key things for me, if you take one thing from today. One is a policy is imperative, and the number of people who don't have one, whether it's what we've done or what Liz has done, is staggering. So think about the policy piece. And the other piece, which I think we're going to pick in, is Alan's point on your data, your solutions actually. The data piece is fundamental. Without data, you can't have a sensible discussion. So we're going to focus on that as the master class. So in terms of the first sessions, fortunately Waterford is in a great place because my Irish geography was a bit bad, so I had it as Wexford to start with, but not to worry. We visited 6 hospitals. You can all read that and see where they are. But I think importantly, why did we select those 6? And Alan alluded to part of it at the beginning of the session. But actually, at the point we did an analysis of the PTL, those hospitals held 80% of the 9-month breaches, plus they also held a significant amount of the scopes breaches. I'm going to show you some data as we go through about what they achieved. And I think actually all credit to every one of those hospitals for what they did achieve. It's important to recognise that achievement. Because some of them had 6 weeks from a visit max to the point at the end of September. So actually look on it and reflect. And this is about building a learning from those visits out to you. We also didn't just look at the hard numbers in terms of the absolutes, we also looked at the relative numbers as well. We actually started to look at the relative numbers to the size of the hospital, and we also looked at a whole range of other factors, whether it be geography, or whether actually these problems we knew people had that were a bit inherent. But the fundamental thing was we carried 80% of the breaches. The interesting thing is they no longer do, and actually those breaches have shifted. So that was who we visited and why. What did we do? I think it'll go back to Alan's point. We went with the hypothesis that it was the hospital data. So we took a slice of a PTL at a particular point in time, and then we presented it in a way that nobody had actually ever used before as a technique. And we used that data to facilitate a discussion. And the discussion was at hospital, specialty, and consultant level. And it was important, actually, I think some of the best discussions I had was with consultants and teams, actually, when we broke the numbers down. I'll show you what we did and how we used it. But we used the data to have the discussion, and that helped us unpack a whole load of stuff. We then held a whole series of specialty meetings, met waiting list managers, and I think an important lesson for me was actually joining up waiting list management with bed management and theatre management. And it surprised me how that wasn't always joined up. Maybe people in the room could join it on very well, but one of the interesting things was it wasn't as joined up as it could be. And I think Liz will talk about it later. That's part of Liz's findings from the audit Liz's done. If you're looking at a waiting list, I was going to say what's your biggest constraint, but there's 60 of you staring at me. What's your biggest constraint? Somebody tell me. No. Biggest constraint on a waiting list on scheduled care. First thing. Beds. Beds is 2. What's number 1? Theatres. Yeah? So actually theatre capacity planning, taking it off, then bed management. You know theatres, you don't need the beds. Yeah? So you start to think about it, unpack it and look at that way. Nobody joined that up. Yeah? Because obviously there's other things impact on that. You've got to join it up. So we did those, and then we came to an action plan. And our objective was for any problem specialty to get the hospitals to have an action plan in place for improvement within those specialties. Got to walk through what some of those action plans look like. We're not going to show you anybody's individually, but what we're going to do is walk through some of the core content within them, because I think you can take a lot from that. It was a big ask, but it was a big ask that everybody delivered on. And then interestingly enough, we had follow-up meetings, and we pushed for those hospitals we revisited, and thanks to you all actually, because we pushed the onus back on the hospitals to say, what have they done, what the barriers and what the problems, so the hospitals then present it back to us. Now looking at Alan's slides, my big worry is what's the bounce back post-September? Yeah? So part of this process is about cascading the learning to get people to think about how do you avoid that bounce back, because you always get a bounce back when you've got a target. Yeah? So actually, what do you do to continue the pressure, keep the pressure on, keep those waiting lists as low as you can, and manage in a different way? Okay, so that's what we did. And I think for me, those follow-ups were probably the best bet, actually, because it showed what people could do and what people could achieve, and also the level of transformation people would make. So that's really, really busy. But there's some key messages, and it's anonymous data. What we did was we went to each hospital with a whole series of graphs, which took by specialty, by consultant, an analysis of a PTL. Now the interesting thing is, everybody said they'd never looked at their data this way before. Now one of the key things for me is if you look on, if I can get this to work, that is the shape of the PTL. So everything over here is the number of patients who are waiting a week. There are 52 segments on that graph. That line there and there is everything that's a breach. And interestingly enough, the way we cut it for the teams was to say, that's the tsunami you need to clear by the end of September. And one of the key things about that, and my biggest learning across all the hospitals, was everybody looked largely at the week they were in, and the system probably encouraged them to look at the week they were in. Nobody actually looked at their training. Yeah? Nobody actually thought, what is that I need to do for the next 3 months? So I would strongly urge everybody to think, when you're looking at your data, think 3 months ahead. Think longer if you want, but take 3 months and think 3 months ahead. Because actually when you're doing your theatre planning, when you're doing your capacity planning, when you're looking at your beds, that's what we're starting to use with the data. So one of the big things we did is also to say, what's the shape of that? Now the good thing about every one of those is none of them chronologically good. Yeah, because you can tell from the shape of a waiting list if you chronologically do. And they should probably go, I'm going to never make a good surgeon, but it should go up, down, and along. Yeah, so it's a bit of a kind of bell distribution, not that skew. Alright? The other thing about this, which is interesting, is if you look there, those big numbers at the end are Alan's 12 months breaches. So my question would be, if I just look at that as a set of data, if I'm an ops director, is I look at that and go, why? Yeah, it's those, you probably clear those. Why is that one there as well? Yeah, or if you get, show some later in the data session, you get large spikes at the end. Why? It's either a patient-related issue, a surgeon-related issue, or somebody's totally incompetent, or one of the three. Yeah. But why is it the case? Because actually, if it's a patient-related issue, you can sort that. Surgeon-related issue, you can sort that as well. Now, the other bit was then to say, what's the shape of what are you clearing? This is probably the most fascinating part of any of the visits for me. And I know a lot of guys now do it, yeah? And some smiles in the room, because I know some of the people are smiling going, we do it. Actually, one of the issues is when you look at waiting lists, one, what's its shape, who's on it, and how's it work? Second point, when you're clearing it, what are the numbers you've got to look at? Yeah? So if, for example, in this case, you're looking at, again, I'm taking those patients this end, that one's probably not too bad, but why are those guys being selected and cleared that week? Yeah? So this gives you patients by week on the list, and then who's been treated within that week. Yeah? And it gives you the analysis that says, I'll show you a graph from one of the hospitals later, which is anonymised. But actually it gives you an analysis that says, why is it if I've got a patient waiting 12 months, I'm treating a patient who's waiting a week? Yeah, and that will bring me on to a point later, which is there were 15 classifications of patients in this country. There are 2, routine and urgent. You cannot be nearly urgent, potentially nearly urgent, maybe on a Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, because that gets you into, there's no way you can analyse that data. So one of the things is to think about when you're treating those patients, why? That doesn't mean you can't treat patients that in. There may be a very good clinical reason for those patients being treated. The question is, it gives you the analysis as to why. It's important to think about that, because that's also going to go back to, sorry, I picked on you earlier, I've got the feedback as well, how you use it. Yeah? Then you've got some extra ways of cutting it. So when you look at it, where are you taking people from and what's the trend? Yeah, so the key messages, I think, we'll talk about it on the data piece, but think about as you do it is, make sure you're looking at trends. Don't just look at absolutes. If you just look at a week, it's not going to help you. Look at also the trends in benchmarking for surgeons. That was the most fascinating part of any visit. Every one of them liked that. We had some people who blamed each other, which was quite fun, and we equally had some people who actually said, well, actually, it's me, it's got a great problem, taking me out. And it was the first time some of them had looked at the data for that one. So think about how we do that. And that was probably, the guys can tell you whether they found it useful. I know some of them have taken it and translated it into their own way of working and their own way of thinking, actually. It's not necessarily the perfect answer. You've got to make it right for you, as Alan said, but it's the principle. Good. Whoa, Jenny. Scary. Where are we going? So, in the discussions, and you're going to hear a lot about the top boxes on this, we focused on 5 key areas. And the toolkit you've got focuses on 5 areas as well. First bit was around leadership and governance. So what are the structures people have? Have you got steering groups? Have you got operational groups? How do they meet? Second question, have you got a policy? Everybody said, yes, we've got a draft policy. Those range from 2 pages to 20 pages. None of them set out an accountability structure. My question, if you don't have an accountability structure, how can you manage your schedule care waiting? Yeah. We've got a steering group. Question number 1, who's accountable to deliver it? Hopefully you're a chief executive, general manager. Number 2, who's responsible for that delivery? Got to be spelled out. What your escalation routes when it goes wrong, how's it going to work? Liz is going to cover a lot of that later. Second bit was around data. How do you use the data you've got? What are your data constraints? Yeah. When I started many, many years ago working, everybody did 3 feet of books. I think everybody we met still was 3 feet of books. Not everybody had electronic systems. One of the key things is that's still an information system. You can take samples of it, you can walk your way through it. That's more relevant, but think it through how you use that data as a plan on what you've got to do. Yeah? That then led us to process improvement. What is it you need to do to improve? How might you improve? Now that could be anything simple, from pulling patients, thinking about feature schedules. We'll come on to my favourite subject later on. And then risk and contingency. There was no fat in anybody's plan. Nobody put any contingency in them. And part of that was driven actually by the fact that everybody looks at points in time. So one of the things is thinking about, if you've got a potential for a single point of failure, how do you measure that? How do you build it into your data plan? And how do you build it into how you might manage bed? If you know you're going to have a demand that impacts on a set day case beds, we'll use that as a prime example actually, and those day case beds may not be dedicated but might get used for other patients, think forward and think how many you're going to lose. So go back to the bed point as well. Start to build that into the process. And then we looked at comms engagement. My strong point, I think I said this everywhere we went, is nobody was very good at celebrating success. There was some great stuff actually that people were doing. Some of it was buried in specialty teams, but actually nobody cascaded it across hospitals. Equally, and this is more difficult to do, I accept, there was actually very little, if any, people publishing failure. Yeah. And one of the things is actually about learning. Part of this process is about learning from success and learning from what people have done. But actually everybody makes mistakes. And I think it's important to think about when something doesn't work, make sure that that's cascaded through the system as well and picked up. And that's something Jenny's very keen that people pick up as we go through the process. And that linked into purely waiting list management. Alan alluded to this earlier, there are other bits of the system that need to be looked at. One is about demanding capacity planning. So you've got to actually start to think about how you manage that demand, how you manage capacity. Yeah? Because you can't manage the waiting list in isolation without looking at that. Thinking about booking and scheduling processes. Yeah. Now, the solution will not be the same for everybody, but is it centralised teams? Is it actually decentralised teams and specialties? Or is it people still using medical secretaries? But how do you underpin that with a right level of process? And then, how do you make sure you get efficient use of resources? When we talk about data, we're going to talk about all of the things that impact on a waiting list. I'm going to hit you with some at the moment, so that it gets you thinking for later. One's about DNAs, one's about turnover, local use, overtime use, vacancies, staff turnover, and that also gets you into risk. Yeah? So starting to think about the wider factors. A waiting list behaves the way it does for a reason. Yeah? Behaves the way it does usually because there's no policy, there's no consistency, and there's no process, and then you get the human bit that comes on below it. So it's important to start to factor all those things in as you go. So what do we find? It's a lot of very bold statements there. I'm going to unpack some of them. One, a lack of or an absence of formalised policies. I think everybody had a draft. Yeah. But without that formalised policy, you have nothing that says, here is what I expect you to do. Okay. And also you have no governance framework, you've no escalation route, and also you've got no consistency. So what you're going to do about clinical suspensions, non-clinical suspensions, cancellations, DNAs, allocating TCIs, yeah? All words everybody in the room is familiar with, but without a policy, you ain't got nothing to hang on. And one of the hospitals who's not in the room actually, we took a draft of the policy with us, and by the end of the visit, every medical secretary had a copy of the flow charts on their wall, laminate them into one of them. Not a bad thing to do, to be fair. So I think thinking through how you use a policy and how you embed that policy. You can't just go, here it is, use it. You've got to think about the process for how you embed it, because that's a big change for people. A lack of transparency of data, as I say. A lot of people would say, I know my waiting list today, actually quite a lot of surgeons did actually, or quite a lot of them also said, I know my data list tomorrow. Yeah, very few people got forward. Okay, go to the little theatre managers, you've got theatre lists of the day about systems and processes and people not thinking it through. But part of it is also about fear as to what the data say. I think, are there any surgeons in the room by any chance? I know I've got a couple of physicians, not surgeons. One thing about surgeons is they like data, and every one of them really got into that. Actually, that think through. What does my data tell me? What does it tell me about my team? And actually, that is their challenge. What can we do? What do we need management to do to help us? What can we do to help us? Lack of consistency in patient categorization. I've spoken about that, but Alan keeps asking me to reinforce the message. 2 categories, please, routine and urgent. There is not soon, although wanting to move from soon to routine or urgent. And that certainly is not nearly soon, nearly urgent, could be on a Tuesday, as I said. Yeah, but actually that whole thing is if you have no consistency of classification, then the numbers you have on a waiting list are completely spurious. They're really, really important that everybody does the same, the patients are classified the same. Lack of chronological booking for routine cases. One of the other members of the team who was with me last week used to be an ops manager at a big hospital as well. But his big thing is that's inexcusable. Because if you have 2 classifications, urgent and routine, when you get to routine, those patients, you start back the end of each work way forward. The patient is not urgent. If you reassess the patient as urgent, they move. Therefore, they get treated in that window. It's important to think about those classifications. People didn't stress test clearance plans where they existed. And for me, going back to the bounce back thing, that's one thing that I think people need to start to really, really think about it. Doing a proper capacity plan and clearance plan. Alan has this thing about teach people arithmetic before you teach them calculus. Is actually quite complicated because there's loads of variables. But if you think about it at a basic level, you're saying, how many data sessions have I got by consultant? What's the average throughput of patients per data session? How many of those are urgent? Take that out. What does that mean in terms of what have I got left? That's what I've got to work on. Yeah? Then you go to the beds, and then the beds that I've got, what do I need to do to move things around? Yeah? We could also go to my extra favourite subject is when you think about it, if you've got day case beds, there'll be a sharp indicator on say that actually you can put 3 patients through a day case bed, not 2. Yeah? So start to think about what you're using. Now, there might be very good reason for putting 2 through it, but actually, you can put 3 through it if it's an efficient data issue. So think about how you use that capacity, what you need to dedicate to other things. A lot of, maybe there's probably a better way of saying this, maybe it's a learning point for me, but there was limited engagement with clinical staff in a lot of cases, but there was equally limited clinical engagement with ops staff. Okay? There's a 2-way street, I think. Let's recognise that. But actually, going back to the data piece, using that data to have that discussion was really important. Because that's where the barriers started to break down. We had a site where none of the consultants within the teams spoke to each other. By the end of it, they'd come up with their own action plan. And it was very much driven by, gosh, that's what it looks like. Hey guys, what are we going to do? What can we do? And then there was an ops discussion around what do we need from you. But actually use that data to break down the barriers. It's not you, even we know surgeons in the room, that put the patient on the waiting list, it's them. Yeah? So actually use that to your advantage and use the data that way as well. I think also, I'm not the world's best fan of centralised booking teams, but there wasn't a lot of it around. I'm a big fan of specialty booking teams, because you get a good dynamic on specialty booking teams. But equally, there is a logic for centralised, but there was actually limited use. Right? And different people do things in different ways, but I think one of the issues was that because there was none of that, there was no centralisation, there was no consistency, there was a complete lack of consistency in some cases, and actually using a medical secretaries within specialties working for consultants doing different things. So it doesn't work. So actually think about what you need to help you through the process. Fair use of data we spoke about. And the other bit was, there is a luxury, albeit it's a decreasing luxury, about the NTPF funding and actually thinking about how people use that. I think a big thing for me, and a message maybe for everybody, is about thinking about how you use that funding creatively once you know what the problems actually something about a lot of people use it to outsource the problem, and that works for some people. But one of the hospitals, actually used the funding that they got through the capacity analysis to do everything internally. And used that funding for there were additional stations. They also used it to buy some kit to support additional developments internally. So think about what's right for you, but think about once you've got the data, what is it, where's your gap, and then how can that help you with the gap? But equally, what are the barriers to the system? I think are really important. So the big thing is about a policy. Now Liz is going to talk about launching the policy later, but some of the things we said to people, and this was in everybody's action plan, is have a policy which sets out your structure. Yeah? It doesn't have to be 2,000 pages long, it probably actually needs to be digestible, easy to use and easy to read. So translate what Liz talked into how do you operationalise that yourself. But fundamental that you have a structure and a responsibility. Yeah. 9 times out of 10 people will say, yes, I've got the steering group. Next question, how often does it meet? Well, maybe every 6 weeks. Well, actually, we can all meet for 3 months. There's probably one not steering group and 2 does not very, very effectively. What data does that steering group get? Well, whatever we've got at the time, or if we've got an issue. Yeah? So start to formalise the process and use it as a mechanism to challenge the system. Think about the ops group that sits below that. Who chairs that? How does it work? How often does it meet? Who are members of it? And what does it do? What's its roles? What's its responsibilities? Yeah. I used to have an ops group for my waiting lists, which were quite large at one point in time, and then the smallest in the country. But actually, which met daily. And it was an ops group, and I had divisional clinical directors on my ops group deliberately. And that is how we got it done. So think through what the group is. It's got to be right for you, it's got to be right for your system, it's got to be right for the structure. But your steering group is there to steer, it's there to advise, it's there to challenge. Your ops group is a group that think it happens. So who's that ops group and how does it work? Think about that. The accountability for delivery at hospital level, the accountability for delivery is then individual specialties, and then the responsibilities for making that happen. Then go through a whole raft of things that are probably important, but important to say what are the categories you can use for patients. Yeah, there are 2. What are they? How do you work? What's the validation process of your waiting list? One of the big things for any waiting list, as most of you kind of the waiting list manager, so the minute you validate a list, you can take 5% of patients off that. So if you've got a problem, the first thing you do is validate a list. Yeah. So work your way through the validation process and the rules that underpin that validation process. Think about cancellations, suspensions, whether they're clinical or non-clinical. And then actually think about, one of the challenges we face is thinking about how do you implement chronological booking. Remember we said it's very difficult. Yeah. The principle of chronological booking is a very, very simple one. The patients for routine patients, the patient who waits longest gets booked first. So if you've got the classification right, that works. The problem is you've then got to balance out when you do your capacity analysis with all your surgeons, what are they doing per section at surgeon and how does that play? But you've got enough to work with. And you can do that as a pretty informed guesstimate. Then if you have problems, and we're going to talk about an action plan in a minute, but if you have problems with the specialty, put an action plan in place and sit down as a collective team to work it through. Yeah, start that from a data-driven discussion. I've set of ops people in the room, I've set nursing staff in the room, might be theatre managers, your bed managers, and your surgeons. And if you've got physicians that need to be involved, put them all in a room and have that discussion. Here is the scale of the problem. What is it we're going to do? We have a process that we need to follow. What are we going to do? When are we going to do it? Who's going to do it? And how are we going to get there? Think about how you then monitor that. And also think about putting targets in place for people as well. One of the action plans we put in place to dedicate targets for individuals. That was what one of the hospitals wanted. So think it through. And then think about the luxury and the combat. Yeah. But I'm I'd strongly encourage people to think about from the process point of view. Don't just think about it as outsourcing, because actually going back to the data fact, then you're still going to have the problem. Yeah. So everybody will say demand is going up, fine. But actually, when you've got a fixed level of capacity, how do you best use that capacity? So use the analysis to think through the capacity piece very, very clearly. Okay, action plans. Now, I think I said in every group, if somebody's done this to me when I was an ops director, I would have punched them up today. But it works. And it works in a short period of time. So one of the things is to say, what are the total number of patients who you've got breaching? What are the total number of, that in this case, we're at risk of breaching by the end of September. My argument is look at that as a 3-month rolling target. Yeah? If you look at year-end peaks at the moment, it doesn't look too bad if you do the analysis, if everybody goes the way they're going, but there will still be breaches. Second point is you'll get bounce back to January. Because everybody's going to go, yeah, breathe easy, you don't know, demand will go through the roof in January, yeah, and everybody shuts walls, you're going to winter vomit and bugs everything else, and everybody's going to go, uh-oh, and you're back where you started. Yeah? Think ahead. You can also forecast your unscheduled care demand. Okay? Big learning point for me at one point when around unscheduled care service. You can forecast what comes through your door on unscheduled care. That's why they send it to every day. Once you get a major bomb or a traffic accident on the line, you can forecast that to a large extent. Then think about what's your capacity. And this is going to be a big theme, I think. Alan alluded to it, but there is going to be a push, and there will be a push, and there is a push. I'm thinking about data capacity management, bed capacity management, lunching at the group. Okay, think it through. What have you got? And then this is the one that for me is really important, but it's also the one I would have punched myself on. Allocate all those patients, and there is a key word in that sentence, an indicative TCI day. Because then you know who you potentially can treat. That's not giving the patient the TCI day. Subtle difference. It's allocating them on a piece of paper, running it through, then enables you to stress test what you've got. Now when I said that, one of the hospital directors in the room, I said, I'd come to me and I did that, and we laughed and heard about the joke about it. 2 days later, wavelength manager came back and said, I'm not on it. Wasn't a massive task. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a massive onerous task, but you do it as a paper-based exercise. Once you've got that, you then know who's still going to breach. That then enables you operationally to say, what can I do to increase my capacity? So whether that's pooling sessions, looking at different ways of working, additional sessions, outsourcing, whatever. Gives you the capacity to say, what have I still got? So if I do nothing differently, what does it look like? If I then change what I do slightly, what does that look like? And then there was an extra piece, which was, what's the residual bit of that then says, I still have no capacity, therefore I can engage in a sensible discussion with the NTPF around whether it's outsourcing or whatever those conditions. And I think that was the logic we've got everybody to follow. I think I'm going to stand here in the room of people who did it and say, to a degree actually that worked, because it forced people to think about the process very logically, very clearly about what the issues were. And then what are you going to do when that happens? Yeah. So we've all made a mistake before, I've made a mistake before, but actually action plans, you know, like no plan of a withstand first contact with the enemy, whatever it was, 3. But actually plans don't always work. So sometimes you've got to think about what you need to do. So what are the actions you've got to do to do something? Thinking that through, so we've talked about that. Think about the TCI dates, and then I think really less bit is key. Yeah. So don't just say, here are the patients I'm going to treat this week. Think at 3 months. What does it look like? What's that look like? Who am I going to treat? When am I going to treat them? What's my available capacity? Yeah. And then that gets everyone into forecasting and out. What extra do people do now? I'm sure everybody says they pull patients, but pulling patients can sometimes be a challenge for some people, and that's part of the process, part of the discussion of the data, how to do the data in those screens. So engage in the discussion and get people to start to think about going. The patient is routine to a large extent. I suspect you'll find lot of people who reallocated theatre time. Now, some of that was short term, some of that was actually a bit more long term. But actually, one of the issues is when you do that theatre capacity analysis, it will tell you who's got how many theatre slots, who's going on leave. And I'm sure if you put everybody in the room up there, so they would say they reallocate theatre time during annual leave. Probably like to test that, but you know. But actually, potentially reallocate theatre time between different specialties. If you've got pick two random specialties, a vascular team that have no waiting lists and have none forecast for the next 6 months, and they're a great team and play through everything. Well, actually, you've got a plastics team who've got the world's worst waiting list, reallocate your theatre time. That's a hard discussion on how to have. But actually, working that through is a good thing to do, because then everybody's a winner. Then it gets you into a more complicated bit, which is dynamic theatre scheduling, which is probably a long way off, but dynamic theatre scheduling can work. Think about the use of dedicated beds. We had Professor Keane on one of our visits, who shouted at one point about there was no such thing as a bed, they're all got dedicated to make sure you use the right words. But I think importantly, think about if those beds are dedicated, are they used in an effective way? How are they? Upset Frank actually now, that's ring fence, but how do you use them? Yeah. And are they being used for alternative purposes? That's probably important. Think about classification. Think about templates. Liz is going to talk more about this, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But I think there is something about use of consistent templates which sits within the policy. If you have 10 or 15 different templates for booking patients across the hospital, I guarantee you'll be chaos. Yeah. If you have different sticker systems within specialties, as we discovered in one place, it will cause chaos within about 5 different templates. Those consistent templates will make your life a heck of a lot easier. Give people additional theatre time. One of the hospitals came up with a great idea actually, which is reallocation of outpatient clinics. So one of the surgeons said, I like to surge, what's better surgeon? Using their love words, not mine. If I can get a registrar to do my outpatient clinic, then I'll whack in an extra theatre session if you get the anaesthetic and the nursing clinic. And it worked. Yeah, short term I know, but it worked. And it worked for that. And the innovative use of funding. So I think the key message for me is you've got to do what's right for you. Every hospital in the room we visited did different things. Yeah, they also said slightly different things to each one of us, but we've got to respect everybody's difference. But I think that's right. The other point, and I don't want you to read that, was about making it visible to people. So one of the things is to say, if we need to get to the end of September, within each of those headings, what is it we need to do? How do we need to do that? And when are we going to do it on? So that whole visibility thing, and then there's probably, I don't know, 20 odd page action plan and stuff below that, right? So thinking it through, what is it you need to do? Who's going to be accountable for delivering it? And when are you going to do it? And then just put it within those 5 headings. Yeah. Some of them priority actions, some of them other. So if you're going to let anything slip, let the blue ones go, but make sure you deliver on the green. It was about that visibility for everybody to say, make it work and make it happen. You said we're going to show the data and what people did. I think, and it's a black and white slide this, Alan doesn't apologise for it being black and white because it's a statement. If you look at the scale of the challenge for every one of those hospitals, and you look at what they achieved, irrespective of whether that's red or green, makes no difference. They all made a monumental dent in what they got. And there is actually some of these very good reasons for some of those. That I'm led to believe is a coding error that exists, and then there's still some issues. So when you actually physically look at it, you say some of those hospitals did 6 weeks from where they were actually probably 1, 2, 3. Those ones actually probably. At least 1. Yeah, that's a monumental effort out of big achievement. So what are the messages? Think about the governance and think about a process. Think about the roles, the responsibilities, the clarity of that. Make that very clear. Have database discussions. Without it, So if somebody says I've no fees at all, and you're sitting there going, oh, I don't know about that, it doesn't help. So if you're having a discussion, you've got a waiting list, here's what you've got fees-wise, is there anything you can do, how do you make it work? Really important that you look at the demand piece of that as well. Think about putting in place, they don't have to be grand action plans, but think about those, what are you going to do with, if you've got a problem specialist site, you've got to focus on that, create it as a locus of attention, build its capability, let it deliver, and then hopefully celebrate its success. So I think it's important that for me, work with it, and then celebrate that success for everybody who can do it. Also really think about challenging your own internal processes. The reason the process bit is part of that story is to say, when you get to it, when you've got the structure, when you've got the policy, when you've got the data, it forces you to challenge the process. So actually think about, just because we've done it this way for 20 years is not necessarily the best way to do it. How might we challenge that and what might it be? And then use the data to help you do that, but use the discussions you have to help you do that as well. So it doesn't just have to be external, because there is often a reliance or an over-reliance on the external support. And actually all that does is it means it just forces you to continue getting efficient. But think about that. But I think the most important bit is that those two words are key: clinical and managerial leadership. You've got to have the leadership, you've got to have the ownership of the problem, and you've got to have somebody who takes it on to manage it forward. And actually having that ownership will drive it forward. We're really thinking about who's best placed to do that. So if you've got a problem, random specialty, gynecology, it might be that you want to have a vascular person facilitate a clinical working group. If people don't talk to each other, or diffuse the situation. Yeah? Now that might work for everybody, doesn't work for everybody, might work for some, not others, but think it through. Yeah? So some of our hospitals did those kind of things. Some of them use nursing staff on working groups in a completely different way from they've ever done before. Yeah? Some of them use their theatre managers very effectively. Some of them use their bed managers very effectively. And we'll talk about different things as we go through the data. But really think that through, because without that leadership, irrespective of you've got a policy, you've got consistency, you've got data, without that leadership, it's not going to get delivered. But the key things really, three key things for me: clinical managerial leadership, policy, data-driven discussion. I think if you get that right, you're on the road to success. It will not necessarily guarantee it, because it will take, as all the hospitals will tell you, a monstrous amount of effort to put behind it. You've got to put the effort behind it. So I'm going to stop there. And guys,